Losses of any kind aren't palatable, but when they're against Carlton, they always taste that little bit worse. That's where we find ourselves as we bring you the Round 7 edition of The Agenda. And Jay Clark is with me. And Jay, at 2 and 5, about time we just took stock of where the Magpies are at.
It's time for a brutal reassessment, Chris. So let's be honest, because the Pies have had a pretty easy draw to this point. They played a good first half against Essendon, won in the last second against Richmond. Apart from that, it's been really disappointing. Look, at the start of the year, I reckon we thought Collingwood was a 7th to 10th team. Everything going well in that middle bunch. At the moment, with the age demographics and the injuries, Chris, in poor form, really poor form, I reckon they're a bottom 4, bottom 6 side. They go up to Brisbane this week, mate, and it's an absolute 50-50 bet, I reckon.
Well, let's look at the 3 areas that we've picked out as the main areas of concern. Marks inside defensive 50, forward half pressure and stoppages. And we'll start with the marks inside our defensive 50. And it's been a real problem, Jay. The club has conceded 117 marks in defensive 50. That's on average 17 a game.
Yep.
And the most concerning part of that is 96 of them have been uncontested.
Yeah. It's a really disappointing stat because clubs in the competition are doing this defensive stuff really well. It's been a huge improvement across the competition. But you're seeing these highlights here. As you just said, clubs are taking marks so easily and so close to goal. Now, there have been a lot of changes in that defensive 50. I think Collingwood used 16 backline players already, which is huge, Chriso. But for me, it's the way the team is defending further up the field. Carlton, for example, at the weekend, they averaged 10 points per game, Chriso, from defensive 50 to forward 50. That's that transition. Not always easy to do against these tough defensive setups. Carlton had 30 points against Collingwood at the weekend, and they struggled to kick 4 goals against Essendon the week before. So they're not exactly a super damaging team by foot, but as we've seen all year, Chriso, teams are picking through this Collingwood structure so easy. Buck said in design, it's very similar to the top teams. Whether it's youth, inexperience, age, it is not getting the job done. And this, for me, is the biggest issue for the Collingwood Footy Club.
No, it's a valid point. It's not just on those back 6 that are conceding. It's about the pressure coming up the ground and what we call team defence. It's just not working at the moment. The other area of concern is the pressure in the forward 50. And this is certainly a concern. The club ranks 9th for inside forward 50 tackles with 86. The Swans have 112. Now, there's been days where it's been okay, but in that game, this game we're watching now, just 2 against St Kilda. 2, and not much better against Carlton, just 4.
We've highlighted this a couple of times, Chriso, and you've been spot on, because when people ask me what's Collingwood's game plan, Michael, I would say forward half turnovers. The AFL game is such a big battle for territory at the moment, and getting inside your forward 50 is crucial. Frustration for Nathan Buckley is it is coming out oh so easy. Now, I know they're missing Travis Varco. Jamie Elliott, I think, is their second best forward 50 tackler. Goldsack is 5th since 2012. But last year, Chriso, they ranked 3rd in the competition, Collingwood, for time inside forward half, right? So that was the absolute key pillar of their game. Now they're 4th last in the same issue. So Collingwood fans are going, what the hell is going on here? How do you drop sort of 10 spots? Now, Varco back will really help. Elliott's been a huge loss, and Crisp, Greenwood and Blair have sort of been okay. Crisp, I think, laid some pressure, but I wonder if at trade time, and we're probably getting a bit forward here, they're looking for more elite defensive pressure players to play in that forward 50. Be something to be on Derek Hines' whiteboard, I reckon.
Well, that's 2 issues. We've still got more to come.
Doozy.
Clearances. And this is the other area of major concern for the football club. It's just hasn't been able to, right from the ruck contest right through in terms of being able to generate the football out of the centre square and, for that matter, around the ground. It just hasn't worked.
Don't you think, Chris, this should be an area of strength for the Collingwood Football Club? When you look at Adams, De Goey, Pendlebury, obviously, who am I missing here? There's another one, Chalor, side bottom. Do you think this should be an area of strength? And some of these guys are really hard. Greenwood, these are hard nuts we're talking about here.
Absolutely, and I think that's the real issue. When we talk about the inside players that Collingwood have, I think that's the advantage that was going to be earned by having these players involved. It just hasn't worked for one reason or another, and I think that's a real area of focus that Bucks needs to focus on.
So is it the ruck? And this is a hard question because I think we like Brodie Grundy's energy around the ground and the sort of the things he brings around the ground, the contest. But in the ruck, Chris, and you're a big man, I think he's been beaten quite convincingly. I think in that area he ranks poor this season. Matthew Cruiser hasn't been having a great time, but won that battle convincingly. First hand of the footy, so we're going to talk about this a little bit later about what we can do about that. But I think the ruck is a huge area of concern because he's not feeding, Brody Grundy's not feeding Pendlebury Adams side with that first use.
Yeah, we'll talk about that more a little bit later. But continuity has also been a real issue with the number of players that the club has used so far this season relative to other clubs. 36 players. That's 2 sets of 18 used in 7 rounds. Now you compare that with the teams that towards the top of the table like Geelong and Sydney with just 27, and it gives an indication about how difficult it is to try and get some more continuity with having the same group of players performing the same roles week in, week out, so that everyone becomes accustomed with what each other's doing. And it's been a real challenge.
Especially when you're talking about these zones and setups, and you need that man to be standing there in that spot, Christo, because if that one link in the chain falls down, then the whole thing falls away. And as Buck said at the weekend, you're running 150 metres to support your defence. So, look, this is a genuine factor, and why when we talk about the hysteria around Nathan Barkley, you know, the issue there, this is why the club's got to hold its nerve. Back him in. Give him to the year. Get some of these better players back, Jamie Elliott, Chriso, and see how they're going with a full team. I think to be making any big changes to the coaching staff now would be a big mistake for the reason you just pointed out.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a look at the players that are currently available for selection. And the list is dwindling pretty quickly. Now, Nathan Brown has hurt himself in the VFL, so we're unsure right now about whether he'll be available with his hamstring. But there's some senior players there. But gee, when you look at our AFL listed players, there's not a lot to choose from.
No.
And it makes it a really, really difficult assignment, doesn't it?
You need the guys pushing up from underneath. I think Rupert Wills there has got some talent. He's a project, big-bodied midfielder. Matty Goodyear we've seen for one game. Jonathan Marsh is an exciting tool they're really happy with. He's had some hamstring battles. You know, Brown's been out of form. He's one who's got to be sticking to this zone. And, you know, it's unfortunate the demise of Travis Cloke because they're two of the leaders. But because of the injury list, there really isn't a whole lot there that you think is going to change around the fortunes of the Collingwood Football Club in a short term.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a look at those players that are soon to return and perhaps put some positive light on it. Marley Williams not too far away. Ben Sinclair should be back. Taylor Adams might be 1 week. Travis Varco will be back. Travis Cloke, obviously, that's a question mark there. Corey Galt will be available. So starting to get some players back, but it makes it tough when you've just got such a limited base to choose from.
And Adams and Varco are sort of the big ones. I think Adams probably played under some duress earlier in the season, so that's a credit to him, but they want to get that knee right. And I think Varco, with that forward 50 pressure, we probably underrate him a little bit. He had his best year probably for his career last year, Varco at Collingwood, so here's one they'll really look to welcome back. Okay,
so we've identified areas of concern and what needs to improve from a structural standpoint. What about 3 positional type things that we could potentially do to try and help things just move along a little quickly? And we've identified a couple of those areas, including perhaps spending some more time in the ruck for Mason Cox.
Well, if Collingwood's going to have a look and push the magnets around and have a look at the development of these players, we talked about just before how we're not getting first hands into the ruck or Collingwood. Now, Mason Cox was 211 centimetres, Chris, so I know they like him as a key forward, but you think at that height, he's a chance to get first hands. Is it throwing him to the Wolves, do you think, or do you like that move?
No, I think he's got to spend more time in the ruck. I absolutely agree. And I think as going forward, I think he's the type of player that could play a significant role in the ruck. The second of those was Howe back and White forward. You'd like to see that?
Oh, I think Howe played well at the weekend. I know he's recruited as a forward, wanted to play forward, kick some goals. I think to help intercept Mark across that half-back line, Reid does it well, but he needs some help there. And Howe at the weekend, I think, played a decent game. White, I think, plays forward. He spent the whole year as a back. I think there's got to be a change here. Why can't he be like Jared Wade at North Melbourne? You know, that manic defensive pressure, like just throwing himself at the ball, helping that stuff we talk about. Do you think that he could be a Jared Wade or not?
Well, I'm not sure that he can reach the levels of Jared Wade, maybe defensively, but he's not, I don't reckon, the person that's going to kick 6 or 7 goals that Jared Waite's capable of.
All the defensive stuff, I'm thinking from a big man.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's really valid. Although Jeremy Howe has come to the club as a forward, and Jesse White's played a lot back in defence in the VFL.
So they've got to change it.
Well, no, I disagree. I reckon White back and Howe forward. We need goals, Jay. We need goals.
If
and
we can't agree, how are they going to agree?
Well, that's right. And the final point was Scotty Pendlebury spending some more time in the midfield.
Yep.
And I think that's absolutely essential. We touched on earlier about clearances and the need to improve clearances.
Yep.
I think his role in the middle of the ground is absolutely essential.
Yep.
Well, one change that we did see on the weekend was the promotion of young Ben Crocker into the senior lineup. The teenager grew up as a Collingwood supporter and even lived next door to Scotty Burns. He lived his dream out when he ran out in the Collingwood jumper on Saturday, and Collingwood media caught up with Ben and his mother Vicky. Let's take a look.
We're all really, really proud of him, but I think he's worked really hard for this, and I not just being his mum, I really think he deserves this. Draft night was such an emotional night for us. We had so many people over and we thought the night would be over by 7:30, and we were still sitting there at 9:15. So it was a really emotional night, and it doesn't seem that long ago. I still sit down occasionally and watch the video. A tear comes to my eye.
No, who really could have picked that I was going to end up here with my next door neighbour is one of the greats of the club. So yeah, it's a pretty special moment to be able to run out for the club. It's obviously really exciting to get out there and get the first game under my belt. Obviously a disappointing result, but like Buck said in the rooms, just take experiences out of it. And it's one game closer to bridging the gap between VFL and AFL, so I guess that's a positive I can take out of it.
There you go, and of course Ben Crocker playing his first game, and hopefully many more to come, Jay.
It's hard work from him in the forward line at the weekend. He's got great hands, a lot of promise, took a really good grab, but your first game you're playing a forward line, you're not going to get a whole heap of the ball. I think there's a lot of promise there.
Time now though for our Monday moments, and this is a time we always look forward to, and I've picked out Darcy Moore, and it just gave me a bit of a thought when I was a kid watching his old man play back in the 70s for the Magpies. Yes. Let's first take a look at Darcy Moore's big grab. And he's up and just landed cat-like, didn't he? The way he just landed and just had the strut back to the end of the mark.
You think he liked it?
Oh yeah, it was just gold, mate. Just absolute gold.
One Carey said at the weekend that he can become a champion forward.
Well,
and you see stuff like that.
Absolutely. Now this is a throwback to the 70s with his old man Peter. Yeah.
Plucked it.
Oh, yeah, we love that, don't we? Now, what about your Monday moment?
I like Jared Blair. So, we'll see this moment here. His defensive stuff has been pretty good. But as you see, Darcy Moore, your man, comes out. Oh, a bit of candy there from Jared Blair. Oh, and then a second one, weaves around, settles himself, and lines up and kicks a very good goal. Now, that was a moment which really sparked the Collingwood side, I thought, at that point in time, to sort of get them back in the game. A second lot of candy there, straight around
nice
you.
Work,
Cop that one, then a nice little goal. So
he
was happy with that, Jared Blair.
I reckon every Collingwood person was happy with that.
It was a great goal. We need that defensive stuff, Jared, but when you're kicking goals like that, we'll give you a bit more leeway.
Well, mate, a massive game up at the Gabba against Brisbane. A must-win game.
It's not going to be easy.
No.
They might be underdogs for this Chryso by the bounce. I mean, it's they're not playing well at all, and so I think Brisbane would really fancy their chances.
Yeah. Well, it's a must-win game. That's all we've got time for on the agenda this week. Hope you can join us next week for another edition. Goodbye.